I don't know how many viewers I even have right now. But those who do regularly watch my videos, which are very few, I guess you noticed that I didn't post one yesterday. Suffice it to say, I had a lot going on. A lot going on. I actually worked yesterday. It wasn't too bad. I was still in orientation, so there wasn't a whole lot to actually do except for watch videos and take tests. Working at Family Dollar. But last night, I got a call from my sergeant at arms. I was till about an hour ago in a motorcycle riding club, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like the idea of a motorcycle club, but without the extreme zealous devotion to the idea of a club. So we're more about the people in the club than we were about the club itself. There's more to it than that, but that's like an extremely simple explanation. They didn't kick me out so much as I resigned, but I told them that they should label me as expelled and to blacklist me. Told them to do that. To save the club from me. So now I have a confession to make to everyone in YouTube land. And to tell you the honest truth, I expect what viewership I have to completely dry up like a desert. So I've made mention in videos past of some heinous thing that I did when I was 14 years old. I'm sure probably most of you have already figured it out. My son is just in the wrong place. Oh, it's in the right place. I'm in the wrong place. Anyway, most of you probably figured out what it is. So, at the risk of sounding dismissive, I have possibly several conditions that affect my ability to act like a normal person. Not the least of which is ADHD. So, a preface, ADHD is not just being hyper and having difficulty focusing on whatever task is laid in front of you. It's not selfishness or ego or any of that nonsense. It is an inability to control your own, well, to be honest, mind. It is like having somebody else's brain in your head. You don't get to decide what you remember. You don't get to decide what you think. You don't get to decide to be happy or sad like most people do. Most people, they can give themselves an encouraging word, and that alone would be enough to make them happy, or at the very least content with what's going on. We don't have that. And every encouraging word is almost physically painful. Very good at rejecting encouragement and love. And several things go into what's going on with the ADHD mind. But I want to talk about something very, very specific. It's called impulse control. People with ADHD have very little impulse control. You have to train for most of your life just to get to the point where you can control if you get mad at a situation that doesn't warrant anger. Okay? People with ADHD are also more prone to sexual deviance in their youth, and maybe even into adulthood. This is from an article from the Mayo Clinic that I recently read. This is a relatively new discovery. I'm almost 40 years old, and I was diagnosed in the early 90s with ADHD. Back then, the name was all they had. They didn't know anything about it except you couldn't sit still, you couldn't focus, and you had energy for days. That's all they knew. They thought it was a purely hyperactive condition. The hyperactivity is actually a symptom of the condition, and what the condition really is an inability to naturally, that is without some training, inherently, to control your own mind. You focus. Well, we don't. And see, this is another thing. We don't have a trouble focusing. We have trouble determining what we focus on. Because what we do focus on, we focus with such extreme intensity that breaking that focus actually makes us angry. Because we are so heavily engrossed in whatever we're doing that it literally becomes part of us, or else a part of it, however you want to look at it. Alright. Sexual deviance and impulse control. I'm sure you can figure out where I'm going with this. Add to that severe loneliness from peers for 14 years. A boy with hormones that he can't understand or control, controlling him. That's already a recipe for disaster. Raging hormones in a 14-year-old boy with a condition that takes away his impulse control and already lends to sexual deviance. Now I'm painting a pretty good picture, right? Now add this to the equation. And this particular point can cause sexual deviance in what we call neurotypicals, people without conditions like ADHD or autism, Asperger's, stuff like that. There is a stat, and I don't remember what the actual number is, but the majority of people who act sexually inappropriate with, well, really anyone but children, either experienced it themselves or saw it happen. So something I didn't know about my own self because I was too young to remember it, but as a toddler, anything you see shapes who you become. The way you see the world. So now you know exactly what I did. And I did this to my cousin. Well, she recently made it public because I was foolish enough and optimistic enough to apologize. And I didn't just say, hey, guess what? Sorry for what I did. Have a good day. No. I accounted for what I did. I apologized. I accounted for the effects that what I did had on her. I apologized. And I acknowledged that the apology wasn't going to be enough. I know there's not one thing I can say or do in this life that can make up for what I did. And unfortunately, I have paid for it, and by all appearances will continue to pay for it for the rest of my life. I'm sure there are plenty of you who are thinking, well, yeah, you deserve that, blah, blah, blah. And I can understand that sentiment. There's someone who's very, very close to me several someones actually, who had that very thing happen. But the difference was, the ones who did it weren't children. There were a few things she said in her post that weren't entirely true. One of which being that it occurred over the course of years. And it occurred over the course of a summer. Not to diminish the effect of what I did, because it was still damaging and it was still wrong. She'll have to live with that damage for the rest of her life, even if her therapist is able to help her cope with it. I know that. There are people who will remain nameless that have experienced the same thing that she did. And those people tell me one of them has lived with it for 38 years. I didn't even know it happened until about 1.5 years ago, maybe. This is someone I'm very close to. That same someone is the very someone that I watched it happen to. My brother saw the same thing I did. And he was a baby. He didn't even know what he was seeing. I didn't really know what I was seeing because I was like 1.5 years old. Now I was a little older than that, maybe 2. I'm hoping therapy can bring some of these memories back so I can actually deal with them. Because I can deal with the behavior. I can fix that. I can change it. Especially now that I know where it came from. But what I can't do is actually get rid of the source, which is what I really want to do. Because I never, ever, ever want the possibility of the thought of it coming to my mind ever again. I don't want to be that person. I didn't want to be that person then. I just wasn't right in the head. And no, I'm not pleading insanity. I wasn't insane. My brain was just in the absolute wrong place. Way in the wrong place. At this point in my life, I would severely beat anyone I found out who did that. Well, part of that depends on it, though. Were they repentant? How long ago was it? And partly, who was it? I was 14. It was 25 years ago. So for 25 years, she had to live with what I did to her. I thought she was going to counseling, and she may have been going to counseling, but I don't know. This is why I tell you we need to just be better. This isn't just about trying to be the optimal person. This is about taking your toxic traits and getting rid of them. Not burying them, destroying them. Another thing she said in her post was that there was a second person I raped. I know who she's talking about. It's the woman I cheated on my wife with. And I have the proof on my phone to refute her. But she's told everyone that I raped her too, which is where that comment came from in my cousin's post. So no, that woman I cheated on my wife with, I did not rape. I know that sounds exactly like somebody who doesn't want to take accountability, but I'm not going to admit to something I didn't do, and I have the proof that it never happened. the admission of guilt by that woman sent to my soon-to-be ex-wife. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of you say, oh, well, you know, you left out a lot of information. No wonder your wife wants to divorce you. And you're partly right, actually. But my relationship with my soon-to-be ex-wife, she told me, actually she didn't tell me, she told my mom that she loved me. She wanted to work it out. She wasn't going to leave. So just like I didn't keep my promise, she didn't keep hers. It's that old saying, what goes around comes around. And I hate how that works because I can confirm that. Because the person I watched rape that other person who's close to me. The person my brother watched rape that person who was close to us. Well, is also close to my cousin. I don't want to say any names. I don't even want to say any relations. Just what I said is the old adage adds up. What goes around comes around. And then I won't say the relation, but someone who was very close to me had to suffer the same shame and punishment as my cousin. Because of somebody else who decided to take their liberty. Because of greed, selfishness, and a severe lack of impulse control. To be honest, I wanted to kill him. You don't hurt the people I love. But I hurt the people I love. If somebody put a gun to my head right now, I probably wouldn't blame them. Because I know what I did and I know what it means. Sure, I was a boy when I did it. I should have been held accountable then. But I wasn't. And that was also my fault. I lied about what I did. Somebody else paid for it. So I can't undo the past. Can't go back and fix what I messed up. All I can do is not do it again. That's it. I can't do better than that. I can work to heal myself, work to fix what I did wrong in me. I can work to find out where it comes from, exactly where it comes from. If you're old enough to remember something and you don't remember it, it's buried in there and you have to dig it out. I don't justify any of the things that I do wrong. That's just wrong. To cause so much pain and then say, oh, hey, well, here's the reason why. So now you got to deal with it. Wrong way to think of life. If you do something wrong, own up to it, regardless of the consequences. So, on a side note, biker community is very strict and staunch when it comes to things of this nature. Hence why I'm not part of that RC anymore. I didn't want them to pay the things that I did wrong. They may have to pay anyway just because I was part of their collective. I really hope that's not the case. And because the biker community is so unforgiving in this area, despite when I did it, the circumstances under which I did it, and the work that I've done since then, I could be dead within a week, or a month, or a year. Because somebody wants to make me pay by their hand. Another thing that she put in her post that wasn't entirely true is that some years after I did what I did, she saw me and I laughed and joked about it. I never did any such thing. The subject never came up in any conversations since then. Unless I have some repressed memory I'm not aware of, that never happened. I know that sounds exactly like somebody who doesn't want to take accountability would say, but we never talked about it. I did what I did. She retreated from me, which was exactly what she should have done. And that was it. Next conversation I had with her was probably 10 years later. No, it was longer than that. 15 maybe. I was basically asking her how's life. What I did to her hanging in the back of my mind. We never talked about it. I never talked about it. In fact, I never talked about it to anyone until about 2 years ago. Maybe it was not quite so far back, or maybe it was a little bit further, but not much. This is my great shame. Now I'm feeling quite alone. I'll probably lose friends over this. I will have pursuers. Some of them might try and beat me. Some of them might try and kill me. And after this has gone public, my wife's known about it for a couple of years. But after this has gone public, there's no way my wife will take me back after this. There's no way I can put another woman through that. To be honest, I'm at a loss. I could lose my job because it's gone public. I already lost my family. And I have enemies pursuing me. Every chance at any kind of future I've ever had, gone. And this isn't to make anybody pity me, but what am I supposed to do with that? Because I did something epically stupid when I was 14 years old. And I was foolish and optimistic enough to apologize for it. Perhaps it would have been better if I had apologized for it right then, but I didn't have the capacity to do that. And I admitted I was scared of what would happen. It would have been better still if I had never done it at all. This old saying, if I knew then what I know now, my life would be much better. If I knew then what I know now, she and I would be close, like friends. I might still be getting a divorce from my wife because those two items that I mentioned aren't the only reasons why we're getting a divorce. They're just helping her case. All these uncertainties that I'd be experiencing right now wouldn't exist. I have two options. Just live my life and hope I'm wrong about the consequences of all this. Or disappear and hope that was the right choice. Now I know I'm probably going to get a whole lot of really hateful comments for everything I've said on this. And I guarantee there's not one single comment that you could give me, you could show me or say to me that I haven't already said to myself. So, say away. But I do ask if anybody have the curiosity to do so. Look up ADHD and sexual deviance. Read every article you come across. You might find some pretty interesting stuff. And this is especially important for you parents with ADHD children, sons or daughters, it doesn't matter which. Read up on it. And whether your child has done anything or not, whether they have gone off the rails or not, if you have not mastered ADHD yourself, you are not equipped to handle an ADHD mind. Get that kid into therapy. They don't have to have done something wrong. They don't have to be exhibiting psychotic traits. That kid will not know how to handle themselves, especially if they are prepubescent. Okay? Get them in there now. You do not want your children to be where I am right now. There weren't therapies for this when I was a kid. There were medicines. That's what they were. Medicines. And the medicines did one of two things to me. Either turned me into a zombie or made me psychotic. And I assume that that's because of other conditions I believe I have. Now there's therapy. Get your kid into therapy. Just make sure you can trust that therapist. Make sure they know how to handle ADHD in all of its various forms. So, I guess for now, that's all I have to say. My life is falling apart, and all I can do is sit there and watch. I'm still trying to fix all the broken things. So, in closing, all I have to say now is be better.